they are sad, they're at home. So what do? You run a bath and you throw in a couple of bath bombs, just bath bombs, bath oils, bubble bars, like creams and shower gels. Like we were basically sold out. Hello, I'm Michaela. I'm 26 years old. I live in Prague, which is the capital city of the Czech Republic. I think like we are the third most visited city in Europe by tourists. So when we went on lockdown on March the 13th, like the whole Prague just emptied. Like it was like the town of ghosts, basically. It was very, very surreal, kind of eerie. You're used to this hustle and bustle, like people everywhere, groups of tourists, everything closed down, like restaurants, bars, pubs. People are not allowed out, so you're not meeting up with friends. There was a surge in apartments for rent after the lockdown started because all the people with Airbnbs were suddenly putting them out on the market. Basically stopped the country, the economy of the country for, I think, like a whole month. Social distancing, 2 meters distance between people if you're not from the same household, no travels, only essential shopping. So only certain shops like supermarkets were open, pharmacies were open, like only really the essential businesses. And you were supposed to stay at home, basically. So I think that the face masks was what the Czech Republic excelled at a little bit, at least, because when the theaters closed, the costume designers and the costume departments were starting to sew the face masks. So they were like distributing it to the hospitals, and they were giving it for free or for a small fee to people who needed it or who couldn't make it themselves at home. My mom was sewing the face masks for us as well. So all the Czech Republic basically sewed the face masks for like hospital personnel and for people in the supermarkets who were serving the customers, and that was really nice. I think it was kind of a moment of solidarity, because all the face masks, the single-use face masks were sold out way before the lockdown or even the corona hit. Before it hit, everybody was buying the PPEs and the face masks, so it was sold out like weeks before the lockdown. So the government wasn't able to provide for hospitals and the businesses that needed it, like the supermarkets. There was supposed to be the plastic shields and everything to protect them from the patients or the customers. So that was downside to the government policies and how they were organizing it at the beginning of the lockdown. There were cases that people would call police on somebody who wasn't wearing a mask. And you would get a fine for endangering the public health. For example, sometimes runners weren't wearing masks, but mostly at the beginning of the lockdown, people were really trying to obey the restrictions of the government. So like everybody was wearing face masks. I think it's good. I think it really protects people. I think that, the thing is that we like don't know if the face mask would stop the corona or if it was the lockdown. Actually, I think it was the combination of the two. It's uncomfortable, obviously, but you're doing it to protect other people. And it's true that since we stopped wearing face masks at the beginning of July, and we have to wear it only on subway and not any other public transport or anywhere else, that's the time when the cases were actually starting to surge again. So obviously they work somehow then. Like, it's uncomfortable, as I say, but they have their purpose. You could read something in the morning, like there were certain restrictions in the morning, and then during the day it just changed completely. This was like anxiety inducing, because you just couldn't, like, you can rely on anything basically. Even if you're trying to read the non-biased news, you can really rely on them, because like everything changes, like everything is in the air. So the government wasn't clear on whether the shops are going to be closing down or not. So people were getting scared that they wouldn't have any food. So people were queuing up outside the supermarkets. They were stockpiling, basically. Like, you weren't allowed to shop at certain hours because that was hours reserved for elderly people. Okay, if you were planning to go shopping, you would have to plan it in different hours. But most people just ordered online, which we were doing as well. So you didn't even have to go to shops. It was so funny because there were queues. You were queuing even to get onto the website to actually shop for food. Because there is an app and then there's the desktop version. So people who were shopping on the app and on the desktop version, like, there was a clash between the two versions of the website. So they actually, in the end, they shut down the app and only the desktop version was working because people just couldn't get in. And this is like the biggest online retailer with food, basically. When I was trying to shop, you were waiting for approximately like an hour, maybe, if you were lucky. And then even if you get to the actual website, like, everything was sold out. So you would have to buy the most expensive stuff, like the Italian pasta and Argentinian steaks and I don't know what else. And or you would just have to wait. But then, like, thousands and thousands of people were trying it at the same time. So even if they put on the new stock, if new stock arrived and they put it up on the website, like, it could be gone in a half an hour, and you would be waiting an hour just to get to the website. So it was just mayhem. So then people were trying to, like, find in their vicinity, like, I don't know, like farmers, or like in the villages maybe, like, they were like, somebody had eggs, somebody had meat, so they just kind of convened and, like, exchanged because it was faster than going, like, to the supermarket or just ordering online. Yeah, it was just crazy. Like, it took, I would say, at least a month before it calmed down a bit, and there were, like, normal slots, and you could just log on to the website, like, get your food and have it delivered. They would usually leave it either on the porch. If you're living in a house, they would leave it before the gate or on the porch, and he would step back the 2 meters of, that was required, and you would come, like, nod or something, like, acknowledge that you're actually, like, taking the food and that it's fine, and then he would just like, drive away. Yeah, so it was the social distancing handover, basically. As a part-time job during the studies, I had, and I still have, an admin job at Lush Cosmetics. I do the online web shop, so I pack orders and communicate with the customers. And obviously, when everything closed down during Corona, we had a large influx of the orders. So there were a lot of work. So I basically was going to work from Monday to Friday, sometimes even weekends. Well, most of the countries where Lush is have mail order, but they were all closed because of the social distancing, or they weren't people, or they weren't able to ensure that the people would be 2 meters apart. We were able to do it, thankfully, so we could go on. We could, like, keep operating. It was crazy. Like, people were out of their jobs. They were like, at home. They had home offices. They were furloughed, or they had, like, lowered salary, and they were doing orders for thousands. Like, we had 300 increase from year to year on orders. Like, they are sad, they're at home. So what do? You run a bath and you throw in a couple of bath bombs, just bath bombs, bath oils, bubble bars, like creams and shower gels. Like, we were basically sold out. Like, it was seriously, it was crazy. Like, it was second Christmas. Like, we just couldn't believe how many things people were ordering. Like, big orders. Like, really big. We're just like, yeah, and even people were even, like, writing funny emails, like, thank you for being here. Like, I'm so bored at home, and I'm so happy that I can at least, like, make a time for myself with a little bath bomb and just run a bath and have peace for my kids. And it was great because we could go to work, like, if I were, like I said, like, if I were sitting at home, like, staring at the ceiling, I would go crazy. So, like, going to work and making people happy by sending them bath bombs, it was great. We just couldn't believe, like. I actually finished university in January. So I was planning on having like this kind of gap year before I started like proper job. So I was like planning trips, and then Corona hit. So the only thing I managed to do was visit my friend in Scotland and actually help her move back to Czech Republic. And then just all closed down. So I was doing what I like to do. So I read, I watched movies, TV series. I neglected over the time I was studying, and I don't know, working when they wanted us. So I had a work which was great, because then I didn't like get down in the dumps, basically just thinking about the doom and gloom. You know, like you're reading news all day and you're trying to like process it somehow, and if you don't have anything to do to like engage your mind, you basically just get really depressed. So I was trying to avoid it, like trying to stay sane and move a little bit at home and just taking it day by day, I guess. I'm kind of an anxious person, so I was really trying to limit my intake of the news. I was trying to read it like in the morning and then in the evening, because if I had the constant reel of the headlines, and you're not reading only about your country, but you're also reading about all the other countries, and then they are projecting, and it's all very, very overwhelming. So because I just finished the university. I didn't know how the job market will look like in September when I was planning to start looking for a teaching job. So it was all very, very uncertain, and then like all my plans for the rest of the year just vanished basically. So it was like I was grieving basically. I would say like it's grief, because you were expecting something, and then just you lose it. Like it was, I know it's like first world problems, but you still feel it. I don't know. It's just loss of things, of plans, of not being able to meet up with your friends. Because I'm not much of a social person, I don't go to bars or pubs. It was mostly like coffees and brunches and walks, cinema, theater. That was what was missing for me the most, I guess. Some of the restaurants or coffee shops were operating out of takeaway windows. So if you really wanted, you actually could go and get a coffee. When it was starting to easing down, we were then going out with my friend like for a walk in the park, when we actually could meet somebody else from other than from our household. In April, maybe then I went for a couple of coffees with my friends. But in the thick of the lockdown, we weren't able to even do that. I live with my parents still, so we were together. My mom was at home working. My dad was still going to work, but he was driving by car. And I think they divided into two groups. So one group stayed home, and one was in the office space, so they could do the social distancing stuff, so they could be away from each other and not actually get in contact. So family was fine. My grandparents, uh, they live in Prague as well, but we weren't like even trying to like go visit, because we were like, you know, you're trying not to put them at risk. So we were calling them. My aunt, I think she like went and asked if they needed something. They said that they didn't, but we still kept in touch. You know, we in our family we don't really talk about emotions that much. Like we're not like emotional people. So they weren't panicking. They were all right. They seemed fine. They said that they didn't need anything. That they could ask somebody in their building if they needed something, or they could call aunt if they needed something. So yeah, like they said it wasn't necessary really to come visit, especially in the thick of it. So of course I miss them. This did not sound morbid, but they're old and you never know, you know? So like anything could happen. I think we were lucky that there wasn't a bigger spread, but I think that it could get more complicated with the second wave if there is one, because nobody wants to close the economy down again, because that would totally like get us on our backs. I don't know. I think we fared well, but like with the hindsight, like everybody now has the best solution or the best opinion on what we should have done. I kind of trust the government, but again, our prime minister, he would do anything for popularity. You know, like everything is basically a PR stunt. So he goes where the people go. Like illogical stuff, like they were opening dog salons before, like normal hairdressers, and like it wasn't very organized. Like what was closing, what was opening, when and how. And there was the epidemiological committee. They were saying one thing, then the prime minister was saying another thing, and then the Ministry of Health was saying the third thing. It was just all very confusing. Like they didn't do a good PR job, let's say. Like they weren't good in coordinating the information together. I think that Slovakia coped a bit better because they had better political representation, so it wasn't like that much confusion, I think. They didn't want to like let us in. I think they closed the borders like right after us, and there was still some like hesitation whether to allow us over the borders at the end of May. And then Austria, I think it was pretty much fine. Like we closed our borders, like basically all the Europe closed their borders, like all the Schengen space was closed. And then when our cases started to drop, I think they were more than happy to welcome us in. Lots of our citizens, they go to Italy for the spring break. So we were all watching what was happening in Italy from the Czech television. Like the program is called the Czech television. It's like BBC in England, paid by the public. So it's supposed to be non-biased. It's supposed to be objective. So that was the main source of my information. I was also reading The Guardian. I got on my email. There was like a small box with all the latest headlines. So sometimes I check that. You know, it's like a popular website. So sometimes it was a bit too sensational. Like, look at that, we're all going to die. You know, so I was trying to avoid it, but sometimes I couldn't resist. But mostly the Czech television, because they're really non-biased and they were trying to like keep calm and really go by example. Like they started wearing face masks even on the news, like in the studio. I get really bad anxiety. I really started like ruminating and having like obsessive thoughts. Like you just think about it constantly. There's nothing that you can basically do to stop it. I basically said to myself that I need to stop it. Like I need to stop watching the news so closely, and I really need to check it only in the morning and in the evening, because then I would like you could do nothing but watch the news all day. So, and that wouldn't be good. So I just stopped for the sake of my mental health. I think I get a bit crazy about hygiene. Like you tend to wash your hands a lot. You're watching other people like in the public transport, they're not touching you. You have tendency to disinfect everything. We were laughing about it with my friend, but she said that sometimes when she touches something now, like on the public transport, she like holds the pole, she can feel like it's burning into her skin, you know, like you really have this weird sensations now that you know, like the corona can be lurking everywhere basically. So it's mostly just the anxiety, I guess, about that you don't know where it can come from. I'm really interested in how I'm going to look for a job right now. I guess that there are always hunger for teachers, especially for teachers of English. But then if I were to go to a language school to like teach in businesses, like businesses now are letting offices, because they realize that people can work at home mostly. So they let the office spaces they had. So maybe now the language schools won't be able to teach at offices because mostly people will be at home. So maybe do online classes, I don't know. Then schools, who knows what's going to be if the second wave comes in the autumn. Then maybe the children will be 2 days at school, 3 days at home, or the teaching will be completely over Skype or over other online platforms. It's supposed to go back to normal after summer holidays on 1st of September. The school is going to start again. There was mostly distanced teaching or like through videos or just like Skype calls. Some teachers just did like they uploaded materials on school websites, and kids were doing homeworks, just writing and reading on their own. They got the end of the year evaluation, but there wasn't any marks because teachers weren't supposed to mark the kids during the lockdown. Even though they were doing the work, they couldn't mark it because some children couldn't, for example, get access to the materials, so the marking was suspended. Like right now, I'm promised a spot at the Lush through the end of the year because of the Christmas season coming up quite soon. So I have the prospect of having a secure job at least until the end of this year. So that's great. I'm really happy about it. But after the new year, I would probably have to start looking. Yeah. Hopefully by then it just it gets better a bit, and I would be able to get either a teaching job or some job at the office and keep looking. I guess there will be some economic impact. I'm not like economist, but I guess that it must have certain impact. People will be released from their jobs, and it could just have impact on the lives of those people. We think that we don't have problems with racism and with minorities, and there are no studies looking at these kind of things, like people in low-paying jobs if it affected them as it did, like upper classes, like middle class. They could be quite interesting to look at it here, like if actually like Vietnamese people, if they were affected more, or the Ukrainians who work as cleaners, if it affected them more, because we don't think that we have problems with xenophobia and racism here. Whereas I think in England and America, it's much more on display, and the discrepancy is much bigger there than here, because we think that we're better. I don't really subscribe to the like big hit from the Mother Nature, like that it was something to like pause all the capitalist society to do a little bit of introspection. But I really hope that we all do a little bit of introspection and just think about how we're participating in the society and just how we behave towards each other.